Hi, and welcome back to It's Not Rocket Science. 5 questions over coffee. There's a five. I'm here with Mollie Morocco. Mollie, whoa! Mollie works with creatives, coaches, and brands who struggle to answer the question, how do I talk about my business online? So she's really helping them to figure out how to say what they're going to say, how to make it wow with their clients. And I'm really looking forward to the conversation we're going to have today, Mollie. Welcome to It's Not Rocket Science. 5 questions over coffee.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Terrific. Well, I hope you've got your coffee ready, or you've got some sort of drink with you. I've got a nice drink, a warming drink of some nice lemon water there, just to keep me going. So let's start with the first question. I always like to start with Mollie. So what is the problem that your clients face that you see every day when you're working with them?
A lot of my clients don't really know how to talk about their business online. They really struggle to separate kind of what they're doing from what their client actually needs. So they end up kind of bragging about themselves a lot and talking about what they're doing, and they're not necessarily hitting on the certain notes that their clients or their audience actually needs to hear to get them to want to pay attention. Most people end up kind of talking about themselves, and they're not kind of saying those pieces that their client needs to hear to feel like they're understood and that they actually understand the problem and therefore can solve it.
Yeah, it's that dreadful thing about the fact that you know your product really well, but you've forgotten the benefit it has to somebody buying it for the first time, don't you? You fail to see that because you're so close to the product. You're so in the woods and fail to see the trees around you.
No, that's entirely true. And especially what happens, kind of what you're saying, is that whole curse of knowledge idea, which is where we kind of assume that our client has a lot more knowledge about what we do, our services, our products, and they don't. And so we speak to them as if they do. We kind of speak to them as if they're in college as opposed to being in like sixth grade, which is really where most of them are. And so we speak over their head a lot. And so really bringing down what we do at its most basic level so that a middle schooler could understand it is going to help you reach a lot more people, because chances are if they understood it at the level that you understand it and could speak that same language, they wouldn't have the problem that they're looking to you to solve anyways.
So, what's the thing that you see them do so often that actually doesn't help them to solve this? What's the things that you're sort of seeing them do? Which are the mistakes that you're trying to help them solve?
So the biggest thing that I think that they do is that they're not actually speaking to the client's problem. They're not outlining it for them. If they're focused on the client and what they're really wanting or needing or the thing that they're struggling with, then that's going to have a bigger impact than if they're talking about what they do and the features and benefits of working with them. That's all part of a good message, but most people tend to focus heavily on that side of things and their own authority instead of kind of focusing on what their client and what their audience needs. Because here's the thing, people don't care about you, they care about what you can do for them. And so if you're really focused on that piece of things, then they start paying attention. And there's I learned this recently and I thought it was so fascinating. The first person to kind of teach you something ends up owning that information, and a lot of times they end up being the go-to expert in their, or you end up being the go-to expert in their mind. So they want to work with you. You kind of have this like weird, monopoly on that piece. And so that is where, like, if you are educating your clients and you are spending time doing that, it makes a massive difference because they're going to go to you to get more of that information because they actually trust you because you are the one who has made it obvious that you can solve their problem.
I love that. I love that message there that, if you're the person that teaches something to somebody, you're the go-to expert. That's a really great message to sort of embed. So, taking it down to the simple level so that everybody sort of recognizes you as the expert because you're the one that's speaking it clearest. You're the one that's speaking it in such a way that nobody can get that wrong. I think it's a great way of encapsulating what you're talking about. That's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. And I think too, like a lot of times we think, well, somebody else has already said this, we're not reinventing the wheel, but I think we've all experienced it in our own lives where, we will go and we'll have someone say something and it won't click, and someone else will say the exact same thing. And it's the energy or something about the way that that other person said it where it hits for us, or we've heard it and then we get new experiences, and those new experiences then make it land in a different way for us and make it make more sense. So I think for people who are kind of like, well, I don't have anything to add to this conversation. I mean, You might not, but that doesn't mean that you're not providing value, and that doesn't mean that you're not going to help your audience. So, say it, because the way that you say it is what's going to attract the people who really need you and want to work with you.
Love it. Absolutely love it. So I guess that takes us on to the valuable free action, or the valuable free resource that you've got, which I presume is something to do with what's scrolling across the screen beneath us at the moment. Can you describe to us exactly what we'll find when we go to mollie.mikajabi.com/social-content-ideas? I think I've got that right. I shall make sure it's in the notes anyway.
Great job. I know I probably should have shortened that link. So I created a PDF. It's a 17-page PDF. And really what it is it's all different content ideas broken down for you by what your client needs to hear, how you can talk about yourself. I think there's a lot of different lead magnets and resources out there for people, but what I really liked about mine is that I took the time to kind of think about things that are going to be very specific and almost granular to your business, but at the same time, they're going to apply to a variety of different businesses. Because I think sometimes it can, people tend to be a little bit more general, but I really wanted to give people resources that they could use. So it's pretty much over a month's worth of content ideas.
Wow.
So you can just kind of go through it and like put your finger on one and say, this is what I want to talk about today. And I think the other thing is there's a good amount of prompts. One of the things that always happens to me, and it irks me, and every time I make the same mistake, when I get inspiration, I have to write it down immediately. So like I have a note on my phone and I write stuff down. But what inevitably ends up happening is I only write a phrase or a couple of words. And then I'm like full of all this inspiration and I go back to it. No idea. Like couldn't even come up with a post about it. Couldn't even come up with a sentence about it. So I feel like when you have those inspirations, like bonus tip, write down as much as you possibly can, even if you voice text it to yourself, because that's what's going to like spark that inspiration. So that's what I tried to do in this resource, was give you enough kind of prompting and enough examples of what, you might want to talk about. So it doesn't feel like, I've got nothing with that. It really kind of is robust and can give you some content ideas.
I think I'm going to download that now, because that's going to be really helpful. 17 pages. That's a lot of information.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for that. So let's just get on to question 4 at this stage, which is what's the concept or book which really inspired you and you think would be most impactful for our audience to hear about?
So one of the things that has always been really important to me, and also kind of frustrating for me on the kind of consumer end of things, is when people tend to sell to you a lot and they're not doing it from a place of serving first. And so my mentor is Rachel Peterson, and she's incredible. And one of the things that she has kind of taught me is you just want to serve. You want to do everything with an open hand. When you have a discovery call with a client, when you are, offering someone something, you want to give them as much value as possible. And they're going to want to work with you. And if they take what you have to offer and they run with it and they're successful, that's fine too, because they are still going to remember that you were the one who helped them get there. And I think a lot of times we can kind of like want to hide things behind a paywall and make people have to, pay for our good stuff. But at the same time, if you are like giving a ton of free value and providing, value to someone, they're going to see that and say, well, if this is what this person is giving me for free, well, then I totally want to work with them, because I know that if this is how much value and, amazingness I'm getting here, I'm going to get even more once I actually go to work with someone. So I hate sitting on a webinar and having someone waste my time with all of these like sales pitches. It's like, give me value. And if you help me, I'm going to want to spend my money with you because you've helped me. So,
that's brilliant.
Yeah, that's kind of my biggest philosophy.
I think that's brilliant. And it's something that a mentor of mine has also drilled into me many years ago, which is, when you're starting those calls with somebody, start with being interested in them rather than trying to be interesting to them. Start with that open hand, as you said, be interested in what they have got to say and what their problems are, rather than trying to be interesting and kind of come up with the sparkle that somehow just doesn't quite meet their level and, it misses the point. So I think it's a brilliant message. And I love what you've just done with that. And I'm going to be going to that link in a few minutes' time and making sure I've got that downloaded, because I think 17 pages of value, that's a lot. So let's come to the 5th question. And this is the point where I can relax. Thankfully, I don't have to think anymore. That's great. What's the question that I should have asked you that I haven't yet? And once you've asked that question of yourself, would you answer it for us, please?
Sure. So I think maybe the question that you should have asked me would have been, what's one thing people can do to improve their online presence?
Oh, I like that.
So it's video. I think, with TikTok and all of that stuff, like, we need to be on video. People need to see your face. They need to get an idea of you. They want to see your energy. Like, that is what's going to attract people to you. And like, I've had clients who, I get on a call with them and they're like, I already know I want to work with you. Like, because they've taken the time to see the value that I've provided on video and they feel like they already know me. There's a relationship that kind of happens where people see your face, they see your eyes, they hear your voice, they get to know who you are, and they feel like they know you because they're having this conversation with you face to face and looking in your eyes through a screen. But, it makes them feel like they know you. And so then they want to work with you, and it kind of builds that know, like, and trust factor in a way that, doesn't happen if somebody's reading a blog post or an Instagram post or an article about you. They want to actually see you. So a lot of people are scared to get on video, but it's really kind of like the way of the future, and you just have to go out there and practice. It can be intimidating, but if you practice and put yourself out there and start to figure out your flow, like, you'll be great.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're here on a video call today. We're doing this on video. It's out there on the internet forevermore. And, to be honest, there is nothing wrong with making an occasional mistake in these things, because people don't look at that. And I think that's what stops a lot of people. A lot of people are really worried about, what if I make a mistake? Well, so what? Everybody else makes a mistake. We all occasionally do it. Nobody's going to think very much of it. It's just a small mistake. Just move past and do it. And I agree with you. I started doing my blogs as videos, and the first two were dreadful and they're horrible to look back on. But hey, I've got better. And so what? We all expect it.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think a lot of times we can kind of feel like, oh my gosh, but they're going to be terrible. Yes, they should be. And if you don't look back and say like, oh my God, I'm like cringing at myself over that, then you haven't gotten better, so it's something that's super important to do. And I think not a lot of people are, taking as much time as they should and kind of putting that into video, because it does, you can take a piece of video content and share it, as a post. You can like pull it down into smaller things, make it a reel, make it there's just so much that you can do if you start with a video. And
you're right. That's that touch. We see the person, we hear the energy, we get to know whether or not that's a good energy for us. It works really well. It works year round, particularly nowadays when none of us can see each other anyway, because we've got these viruses and such like. But enough of that. We won't get there. Let's conclude the conversation by just saying thanks so much for being with us, Mollie. Really appreciate everything you've said. Looking forward to seeing some of that stuff that you've got on that site. Listen, people, if you would like to get on the mailing list, which allows us to email to you on the day before we do these live, so that you can actually watch people, really interesting discussions, like people with real expertise like Mollie, go to this link, which is https://tca.fyi/subscribe. That's tca.fyi/subscribe, and get on the mailing list, and then you can hear about these wonderful conversations. Mollie, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate you taking the time. You've just delivered massive content, and I really appreciate the time you've taken.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it and enjoyed myself.
Okay, thank you very much.